Within Nanaimo, we have areas where poverty rates approach 1 in 3 children under the age of 6. In areas with more resources, those rates are as low as 1 in 7. Still not very good, but again, not necessarily different from any other community these days. Strong correlations exist between the child preparedness for school and these poverty rates, children living in lone parent family settings, and unemployment rates. The proportion of young children living in family situations with a single parent has increased, with now 1/3 of families with children led by a lone parent. There is good news. Education levels and graduation rates are increasing. Maternal smoking rates continue to decrease. Perinatal measures, as reflected by the health of our newborns in the hospital, continue to improve. Childhood hospitalization continues a trend of lower rates. Childhood exercise is actually improving. And children are better prepared for school in the realms of communication and language. Conversely, children are less prepared when they start school in the domains of physical, social, and emotional development. And as well, children are more vulnerable when they start on any dimension of these when they start kindergarten. Wait lists for children's services in the community are touched upon, and at times disappointingly long. Immunization levels continue to slide downward. Prenatal preparation and supports are decreasing. The elevated levels of children in need of protection and children in care remain disconcerting. The school setting remains an environment where our children are provided with the best opportunities for their future. That children are less prepared for school in the past few years may correlate with increased reports of behavioral challenges in students, lack of regulation, and learning challenges. And as some of us were experiencing yesterday, that preparedness for school at the start of kindergarten correlates very well with their success at grades 4, 7, 10, and later on in life. So if we invest in those early years, we will have a long-term benefit. The demonstrable undermining of supports to children in the community continues to erode and correlates with some of the reduced preparedness for children in schools. Rates of children in need of protection and children in need of care are discouragingly high across the island and are increased in the Nanaimo area. Early and intensive supports for new families are the best option for preventing such situations, and such supports are scarce and only available to a small fraction of Nanaimo families. This report would not have been possible without the contribution of many of the partners of the Greater Nanaimo Early Years Partnership, some of whom have already been mentioned. The funding from the Children's First program at the Ministry of Children and Family Development. The support of Success by Success 6, which is also funded by MCFD, the United Way, and the BC Credit Unions. Amid the challenges facing families as a result of economic disparities, a common message heard from families is a lack of awareness of the services that are available. Interspersed in the report is information on the sorts of opportunities that families can avail themselves of and how to link to those, the now available family support website where information on Nanaimo services and community opportunities can be found. That's www.nanaimoearlyyears.org, and I know Amber's anxious to talk more about that. As a community, we have all a role to play in the lives of our children and our individual talents that can be applied to ensuring that all children in the Nanaimo area thrive. In investing our strengths in our children, the community as a whole can prosper more economically, and we will reap the benefits both in the short term, which we can all enjoy, and in the long term that our children and grandchildren can enjoy. Thank you for being here and your dedication to the future generation of our community.
So thanks. So in a minute we'll have some comments and questions if you have any for Paul, but one of the goals of the this document is to help public policy makers and public officials understand how they can best support our work. So in respect of that, we're going to give an opportunity for those folks to speak today, and on that note, I'd like to ask Sheila Malcolmson, our MP for Nanaimo, to step up and make us hello and say a few words if she wishes.
Thanks, John. I wish I had a way I could use this podium. No speech, but I love this celebration of the National Day of the Child being held right here in this space, and hands raised to all the people that are doing the frontline work, and to the people that have documented what has been done, where we need to work further. This measured approach, taking time partly to celebrate success, but also actually gathering evidence and using evidence to inform policy decisions. On the national level, it's a whole new world after a dark decade in Canada. So work like this that's being done at the community level is going to inform so much. The work that Paul, that Gnip, that so many community partners and funders are doing. So I thank you, I commend you. I want to leave with you one moment for me in the federal campaign. We're talking climate change, affordable childcare, big policy ideas. In the middle of that, I got pulled in on Seminas Reserve by the grade 3 teacher. I was meeting with Chief and Council, and she said, my grade 3 class is studying the election, and we wondered if we could talk to you sometime, maybe on Skype. I was like, I'm here, let's just do it now. On my way into the class, the teacher, Leslie, said, I need to give you a little heads up. These are kind of tough questions. There we were all sitting in a circle, cross-legged on the floor, tiny little grade 3 kids. And they asked me 4 questions that were the hardest questions of the whole campaign. After they kind of warmed me up by the teacher saying, okay, what are the Conservatives for? Business. What's the NDP for? Family. And all these kids popping their hands up. What are the Liberals for? In between. I don't know, they were definitely biting on the issues, but the 4 questions they asked me, one at a time, which were deadly and so important, were, 1, what are you going to do to make sure every kid has water? Grade 3. What will you do to make sure every kid has a house? What will you do to make sure every kid is fed? And the final one, what will you do to make sure every child has a family? So out of the mouth of babes, the things that are our deep responsibility at every level of government to assure that we have that structure, that safety net, that commitment. And in this region, more than anywhere, we know the disparities of income, the work we can do that can set these children up to succeed. So I look forward to working with you all, and thank you for bringing us together today.
Thanks. I'd like to take this opportunity to invite MLA Leonard Crow up to the
Thank you, John. Good morning, everyone. I want to quote something my granny used to quote all the time. It was old Pope John. He was the first peasant pope, the guy, that round-faced jolly fellow in the 50s. And he used to say, God bless the very young and God bless the very old. And that resonated with me my whole life, because those 2 stages of life are when we're in the greatest need and when we're most reliant on our family and the community at large. The other thing is I'm getting less patient as I get older. And so the statistics that Dr. Hasselback read out around increasing poverty and a lower number of people actually receiving social assistance drives home the clearest message for me that I hear over and over again, and I see every day in my work as an MLA here in Nanaimo. And that is that the poor are getting poorer. People who are working for a living, who are not on social assistance, are falling further and further behind in our society. There is no question about the statistics. They are damning and they are consistent, and they've been consistent for the last 20 or 30 years. The reality is, when Len Crow got the minimum wage in this province 40 plus years ago, it had far greater purchasing power than it does today. Those are just simple statistics. In our society, there are essentially 2 ways, subject to receiving it by inheritance or stealing it, There are two ways that wealth is distributed. It is either through wages, or it is received by government in the form of taxation and distributed that way. Those are the only two essential choices, my friends. And there are no other basic ways of doing it. So we either as a society make up our minds that we are going to see wages increase and thus help distribute wealth in a more general way, or we're going to have to be prepared, and certainly my generation in particular having benefited from it most, to pay more taxes in order to ensure that those in poverty are lifted out of poverty. And so that those very young that Pope John talked about enjoy the life and the opportunity that they deserve. My generation had the best of it. Low tuition, high rates of unionization in the workplace, higher rates of taxation on higher income earners, the benefits of a public education system looked after you, community health that was effective, and I appreciate all the work that those who work in community health are doing across the province today. But these are tough choices, and I'm older now and I'm less patient. It is time to solve this problem. It is tiresome for me, time and time again, to come out in this community and see the level of poverty and know that it's not yet improving, and indeed the statistics quoted by Dr. Hasselback this morning indicate very clearly it's getting worse. So either we're going to rise up and do the right thing, or I'm going to go to my grave a grumpy old man, and I don't want to do that. So thank you for listening.
So MLA Michelle Stillwell was unable to make it today, but I'm wondering if you would like to make any comments on her behalf, please.
Michelle sends her regrets that she was unable to come today.
So Michelle requested that I make a statement for her today. And so she says, I'm pleased to see such a strong turnout today. This is a testament to the importance of all of us placed in the health and well-being of our children. It does not matter if we are representing a level of government, a service provider, a health authority, a business, or our parents. We are all partners in this endeavor. It bears repeating that the supports a person receives as a child, especially in their early years, have a massive impact on their health, education, and even financial and career prospects as they become adults. As any caregiver or parent knows, there often will be challenges in raising a child. But all of us here today want the very best for our children and to help them overcome these challenges. I will continue to work hard in partnership with you in raising issues, finding solutions, and making sure the health and early years development of all British Columbia's children remain a priority in Victoria. Thank you very much.
I'd also like to ask MLA Doug Rowley if he wants to say a few words.
Thank you. What a podium indeed. You ever notice that things you want to stick, they never do, and things that you really don't want to stick to, they do? And yeah, and if you reach in your pocket for your keys, it's always in the pocket on the side where you're carrying a bag of groceries. And I say those two things to preface that perhaps I'm not always an optimist. Perhaps I could be accused of sometimes seeing the glass as half empty, but when it's a little bit more than that, I think we have to be honest with ourselves about the state that we're in, and not in any way hide from the truth. And it's, I think, wonderful work that's been done by Dr. Hasselback and everyone involved, but it's so unfortunate that it points to worsening conditions for families in this region, worsening conditions, particularly for those who are living in poverty. We see things that jump out at me. Proportion of families earning less than $20,000 per year went from 7.8% in 2006 to 15.7%, almost doubling in the 5-year period to 2011. And the percentage of people living in poverty worsened from 11.3% to 17.6%. So this is really disturbing news, and I think all of us in our communities who work with families, particularly policymakers who can have a direct impact on services to children and families, need to pay great attention to this and be very honest with ourselves about this as a failure of public policy. We have the proportion of children under 15 years of age living in families receiving income assistance actually decreasing from 7.8% to 6.2%. Dr. Hasselbeck referred to that as the direct result of policy choices, and it absolutely is. We have to be honest with ourselves that we have created a situation, I think it was Adrian Dix who once said to me, that people at the beginning and end of their lives are paying for tax advantages for those at the most thriving income potential years of their lives in the middle. And that's, I think, the bottom line of what's happening here. We have not got the resources to support families in the way that we should and must. We have seen 4.4% of the population of Nanaimo is Aboriginal, and yet I think it's 22% of referrals to this agency are Aboriginal. So all of these point to continued failure of us as a society to grapple with some of the most deep and troubling and vexing problems that we face for the most vulnerable people. It's easy to stand here and say this, but I think, you know, it's onus is on us as a whole community, but particularly elected people, regardless of what party they represent, to face this head on, or we will not address this in the time that these young people require. And in my own constituency, I see the highest levels of poverty here on this graph and the lowest in the same constituency. So this is all something that all of us need to be very, very forthright with ourselves about. And you know, we see policy choices. We see children aging out of care. We're constantly reminded in the legislature that there are fewer children in care. And my seatmate, Nicholas Simons, who was a social worker who wrote the report into the death of Sherry Charlie, is a dedicated, passionate person in terms of protecting children, reminds me that that's a policy decision. We've defined kids out of care. We've defined kids out of support in schools for special needs. We've become gatekeepers through division or definition to keep people from services that they deserve. So it doesn't stick, and things that I would like to stick sometimes don't, but that's kind of not the most optimistic view. But I think we all have reason for optimism when we look around at the people who are grappling with the problem. What they need now is support. So we're dedicated to providing that. Thank you.